Hi, my name is Scott Wilson, and I am the chaplain at Springhouse Estates in Lower Gwinnett, Pennsylvania. And we're glad that you can be with us today. The message we're looking at today comes from Psalm 23, just one verse, Psalm 23, verse 5, and we're calling our message, My Cup Overflows. We sometimes describe ourselves as being either optimists or pessimists. Your glass is either half full or half empty. But today, we want to suggest a much better way to see yourself. Everyone who believes in a good and gracious and sovereign God does not hold a glass in his or her hand that is half empty or half full, because all those who know David's God are able to say, like he does, my cup overflows. The first image in Psalm 23 is that of a shepherd, but in verse 5, the image changes to that of God as the royal host of a great banquet, where David is celebrating and rejoicing in God's great goodness to him. He says in verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Attending a banquet hosted by God sounds great. But did you notice that the banquet has been set up in enemy territory? David says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Because David's God is so wise and so powerful, and he loves David so much, David does not despair or worry about his enemies. Instead, he rejoices and is confident because of the presence of the Lord, who oversees all the details of this unusual royal banquet. Now, how does David's rejoicing while surrounded by enemies relate to our lives today? And should you and I really expect to have a cup that constantly overflows? Is Psalm 23 just a description of David's experience, or does it apply to believers in general for all time? And if it does apply to all believers, how do we explain the frequent presence of sadness and pain in our lives? What about the suffering and the many negative and difficult things that we so often experience? As a community of seniors, we have seasons of pain, loneliness, illness, and grief. But even with all these things, we can also recount so many blessings from God that we could see ourselves as perhaps having many days when our cups overflow. But David's cup and ours is not a cup that overflows sometimes and becomes empty when we experience bad times. The cup that David holds is a cup which is filled to overflowing with blessings from God. But the greatest blessing in David's cup is the presence of the Lord himself. Earlier in the psalm, David rejoiced in God's presence when he confessed, thou art with me. If the Lord was with David as he walked through the valley of the shadow of death, the same can be said for us. Of all the blessings God gives us, his own presence with us is the most precious blessing. Our cup, then, is never half empty, because we are not pessimists. And it is never half full, because we are not those who just put a positive spin on bad circumstances. Whether we are having the best or the worst day of our lives, our cup is always filled to overflowing because God fills that cup with himself. The next time you hear someone talk about a glass being half full or half empty, tell them to read the 23rd Psalm, where they can see how anyone who knows the Lord can say on any day and in any circumstance, my cup overflows. We hope that this thought will help you today. Read the 23rd Psalm again. Put yourself right into that psalm and remind yourself just how good God is to you. Thank you for watching. We hope you have a great day.